and we're going to get started here. We are going to have like people still entering the meeting room. We'll have people still coming in through the door, which is awesome, which is super great. Today, we're going to be talking about designing impactful formative assessments. That's the title of what we're going to go over. We're going to be talking about what formative assessment and formative critique is. We're going to kind of also play with some things, especially if you're a GSD instructor, you're going to recognize some of the things that we talk about today, because you're going to say like, oh, we do that right now, which we do. And so we'll talk about the goals and everything. We're going to give a kind of intro of ourselves. So I'm going to kind of hit the slide, and I hope this works, and it does. Okay. And my online people, if anything pops up that's a little too weird or sketchy, I've got the chat up. So just heads up, just like post something in chat or whatever, and we can get it to working. So as a lot of y'all know, but in case you don't, my name is Alex White. I'm the assistant director of first year courses. In my educational journey, I've been on for about 10 years now. I'm in my 10th year of an educator, which is crazy. It feels like time has flown by. For a lot of that time, I spent teaching high school, specifically grades 8 through 12, mathematics and computer science. I taught a lot of like Algebra 1 to freshmen, which is like the best course ever, right? Can you imagine teaching 14 and 15-year-olds Algebra 1, because I did it all the time, and then some data science and computer science here and there. And then in summer of 23, I came over here to EKU as part of the first year courses team, and I've been loving it ever since. It's been awesome. It's been a great and exciting opportunity. And with me, I have Pete Edwards.
Yeah, I'm Pete Edwards. I actually worked with Alex for a brief moment in high school. My background is mainly art education, visual arts, because that's what I taught for years and years. But I've taught multiple places. I've been around. I come from that K-12 background, but in a lot of settings where, they were small schools and you had to do lots of stuff. And so I've taught English, and I've taught some computer science, and I even taught some PE at one point. But then, yeah, it was a whole different thing. And then came to EKU 2 years. Last year is my first year. This is my second year at EKU. And I've been in education for longer than I care to remember. So yeah, 20 plus. I think this is 25 years this year, which is wild to think about. And a lot of my research is focused on formative critique in the visual arts classroom. But as I've been at EKU and then kind of broadened my research and how that applies, like we've started to look at how that really is adaptable to a lot of different situations. And that's part of what we're going to talk about today. Is that crossover when we talk about formative critique, and similar to formative assessment, a little bit different to it, but very similar.
Yeah, absolutely. And so all of what we're talking about today is fitting into this like first year ready curriculum that we're kind of pushing out as a TLI, as a certificate for all of you all that attend 3 or more sessions of the 4. A lot of what we are trying to talk about today and what we are going to talk about in future sessions, which is why I put the QR codes for the future sessions, just in case you want to sign up for them, is a lot of things that we got feedback from our GSD instructors about. We kind of surveyed them kind of towards the end of the spring semester whenever we gave some Canvas like preview sessions. And we noticed that a lot of the times that a lot of our instructors, and I can mainly speak for ours, is that we run into some things that are kind of like, well, what did you all teach in high school, and how can that kind of port over into college, right? I mean, it's not necessarily that we want to know how to manage a classroom and know the ins and outs of that, but a little bit. But I also want to know some of the other things that they just got done with in their senior year. And so the sessions that we have kind of focus in on that. So today, obviously, we're talking about formative assessment, which is kind of everywhere in the K-12 realm. And if you don't know what it is, I'm hoping by the end of today, you can at least find some semblance or know how it works, and formative assessments everywhere. And then we're going into bookending success, talking about bell ringers and exit slips, which are omnipresent amongst the K-12 curriculum, which can also help with classroom management and structure going into more than a class. Chris Butcher's actually leading that one for us, talking about how our impact in GSD 101 transcends the first semester. And then finally, aligning EES to curriculum with this big push of essential employability skills. Star and I are going to show how we've been aligning a lot of our standards of assignments. And that last one, we're actually going to be asking people to bring in their own assignments in their classrooms. And we're going to align them to essential employability skills on the spot with a spreadsheet that I'm going to make for you can take with you. so that you're prepared for the future of like, oh, well, now I have this thing and I can just use this for whatever curriculum I need, because that's something we've been doing the past couple of years. And again, the whole goal of First Year Ready is I want to learn how to really meet my students where they're at, right? A lot of these students, and Pete and I talk about this all the time, they're basically still in high school right now, right? They're 18, they graduated like 4 months ago, but their mindset is still high school mindset. And so what are some things we can maybe do in GSD 101 that kind of helps bridge that gap from high school to college curriculum? And so, yeah, so that's kind of what we're going to be discussing today. That's what we're going to be talking about. And kind of as we get into this, Pete's going to kind of take on the first little bit of what we talk about today, because Pete's, you know, an expert in formative critique and assessment. And then we're going to talk about, after Pete talks about kind of the general what this is, we're then going to work together as a group and split into groups. I think we'll do about 2 groups in here. And we're going to take an assignment in GSD 101 and we're going to rework it today and not implement it today or not implement it this semester, but we're going to rework it to say, well, if study and data shows that formative assessment and formative critique is the way to go, how would I change this? And to kind of like use this as a space to work together, and then we'll share out. So, Pete, I know we've got some stuff up here that you are expert knowledge in, right?
Yeah. Well, we'll try. Also, just to make sure, folks online, we won't push you into breakout rooms because that's cruel. But you can if you want to. So yeah, I just want to throw that out there as we work in groups in the real space, it'll be all right. And so today, really what we want to talk about is some of this is actually coming over from I did a presentation, actually not here, but the Pedagogicon like virtual space about this. This is a durable skill, and I feel like it's really useful here because, you know, we talk about formative assessment in education quite a bit. But this idea that you're checking in and checking up and watching through the process isn't just in education. I mean, obviously our students are going to be doing that, you know, wherever they go. So it is a skill that hopefully they can learn and integrate into their regular workings as they go beyond EKU, right? We're going to talk about how it promotes student independence and their ownership of work, which is one of those really important things. I know, I'm sure you all say it with first year, because I that's the other thing. I teach mostly education foundation courses. So it's those first year students, it's those, you know, that first contact with the education department. And so, I'm sorry, the School of Education, still working on that, School of Education. And so, you know, yeah, exactly. Right. And so this idea where we're getting them to become more independent in their work, where they're moving away from that high school mode where it's like, oh, a lot of hand holding, oh, you've got to get yourself in, but you know, building that independence, and then reflective processes, how they look back on the work, because ideally we're going to build that as we go. At least that's the hope, right?
And for a lot of us in here, and real quick, just before we go to the next one, that last one, fosters reflection on students' process and products. I mean, if you teach GSD 101, we do that a lot. I mean, think about the assignment that we're doing this week, which is the 4th week self-eval. They're literally using the entire thing of reflection. And so we're kind of already in a mindset that's similar, that a lot of our assignments are kind of built on, let's have you all reflect on what's going on right now. And so that's kind of where this kind of spawned from, of like, we really think that formative assessment can do well here because all of our instructors already have that reflection mindset for sure.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. So like we talked about, we're going to give you an overview of formative assessment and formative critique, and not that there's a whole lot of difference, but it's slightly different. The GSD and BTC beyond the classroom, right?
Yep.
See, I'm learning.
Yeah, you're privy to the knowledge.
Yeah. Overview, and then kind of reimagining that for your BTC coursework, and then hopefully sharing out. Like, hopefully you're going to be brave, and you're going to tell everyone what you've done, and it's going to be amazing.
Yeah.
At least that's the goal, right? That's what we want, because ideally, as wonderful as Alex is, as okay as I am, like us standing up here and talking to you for an hour and 20 minutes doesn't really give you anything to take back to what you do in your practice. And so ideally, that's kind of what we're looking for as we go through. So let's talk about a quote, because it's always nice to talk about a quote. This is Dylan William. He's one of the main folks in the realm of formative assessment. And he said, As soon as students get a grade, the learning stops. We may not like it, but the research review here shows that this is a relatively stable feature of how human minds work. And so I would love to give you a couple seconds at your table to like see if you're seeing this, if you agree with this, if you think this is total garbage, like no, it's obviously not true. And give me some thoughts on this. And you know, I thought I updated it with the discussion, but it's all right. That's good. So yeah, any thoughts on? I'll give you a second. Wait time, right? That's what we say in K-12. Wait time.
Yeah.
Give you time to think about it and process it and see if you agree with it. And you folks online too, let us know what you think. Feel free to throw something in the chat if you don't want to put it out there.
I mean, my initial thought is I agree with it. Based off the second sentence, obviously, we don't like it, but I remember, you know, as a student, because you're going from one topic to another, and for a lot of it, it does all relate to maybe a midterm or a final, but there's those random topics that, you know, I just got to study this study guide or this topic for a test. Test is over, whew, I'm good, on to the next one. So I think where there is maybe it goes against this is when they are actually in their major classes where it all does get more aligned. Now GSD though, because it's all over the place, which is good for a first year student, that's where I think this is more relatable to. But I think once they declare and they're in the classes of their choice, they're doing what they hope to do for the rest of their lives. I don't think it's so much of let me get a grade and move on.
Yeah, I mean, we see it, like Pete said, we see this a lot in K-12 as well, because it's almost like I think my students would call it like brain dumping, right? Where I'm like, I'm gonna study like crazy for the hour before, brain dump everything, and then they don't remember it past that moment. So yeah, no, thank you so much, Brian. What else? Anything else come to your mind? Yeah.
I have a funny story after I'm in occupational therapy. And so they go on this level 2 fieldwork, which is basically their internships, and they have to show what they've learned. And the therapist asked the student what's the difference between these two concepts, active range of motion or passive range of motion? She goes, I was absent the day they taught that. And it was a whole semester class. It wasn't just a one and done. But so I mean, first off, you should probably admit you were absent. But, you know, and I get that a lot because I teach undergraduate research, then they have to apply it the next year in their doctoral program where they actually implement a research project. And the professors are always complaining, they don't know anything about research. And I'm like, I taught it to them. I told them they're expected to know it. So.
I mean, we deal with, GSD people, right? We deal with that a lot. I wasn't here that day, so
Yeah.
do I have to do the thing, right? I feel like that's all the time.
Yeah.
A lot of this.
100%. Anything else? Any other thoughts?
So I would say, I think it's a really good point about once you get in your major, once you get deep in your major, you're gonna start hopefully like understanding that and holding on to that knowledge a little longer, but maybe that early step doesn't as much. And I would say the other thing to think about, which is where I'm gonna hit, is if we can focus more on the way you get to that grade and less on the grade itself or less on that final project or whatever it is, like that process of learning it, that process of building that knowledge, you know, then the grade, take it or leave it, the final project even take it or leave it. But if you can control the process and get that to be working, the product a lot of times will take care of itself. And that's where a lot of this formative assessment, formative critique comes in, is you're thinking about it as you go, as opposed to just, you know, working to that project, working to that paper, working to that thing at the end and going, all right, done, turned it in, I'm finished. Because, you know, we've all seen it. It does happen.
Because like also, I mean, think of GSD 101. I mean, that happened. I mean, we're going to teach, we taught them about time management last week, and they made a plan, they made a planner, but are they masters of that planner that week? No. And so it is they've got to practice and practice. So,
Yeah. And that's kind of the goal. So when we talk about formative critique, this comes out of my background in visual arts. This is kind of the creative process. And I'm sure there are a million versions of this. I don't know if you've ever seen Plan, Do, Study, Act, PDSA. You remember PDSA? Maybe you saw, yeah.
Oh yeah.
Same kind of idea, right? But the idea is that it is recursive, right? You're never finished. You keep moving through it. And so we're assisting in that revision of student work as it's happening, which is where if we think back to, once the grade is out, the other problem with once the grade is out, you can't really do anything after that point. Like it's done, the work has been finished, there's no more time to revise, there's no time to go back to it. And granted, we're on timeline, but as much as we can practice, the better the work's gonna be. It forces you, again, that reflective component and metacognition, right? What am I doing? Why am I doing this? Kind of thinking back to where they are, which as the more they go through this, the more they think about, well, what am I doing? Why am I making these choices? What is it that I want to get out of whatever, whatever thing I'm studying, whatever thing I'm making, whatever I'm producing, like, what do I want to get out of this? In-process feedback versus summative, I think that's the big thing, right? We're really focused today on what are you doing as they are working, not when they're finished. Because when they're finished, we've all sat there grading, it's great, and you give feedback. How often do students read feedback once they've turned it in? Maybe a little bit, but once the grade's in, they're not going back to fix it. Not no one. I'm sure there's someone out there in the world, but like almost no student is going to revise something after it's been graded and they've gotten feedback. It just doesn't happen. And this is iterative, right? Ideally in the process portion of this, we're going over and over and over. We are thinking about it as we go. And yeah. Also, let me throw it out there. Like if there are questions, concerns, if you want to jump in, this is a nice informal setting. You don't have to wait for me. Feel free to jump in. So the research is pretty clear on this. You want the feedback to relate to the goals. That's the big thing. And I'm not saying anything that you haven't thought of. I'm not saying anything new here, but the idea is you want them to go together. The things they are producing in your class, the processes to get there, like that's where you want your feedback to really guide it. Ideally, and I always like to think about this, at the college level, we're teachers, but in a lot of ways we're facilitators, right? Because we're giving them work, they're working through it, and we're kind of making sure that everyone's on the right track. Different courses run different ways, but if you think about it that way, where you're trying to get the best work out of them, that's kind of how we do it. Students, and this second part is something that's come up quite a bit in my introductory education courses, is students are nervous about receiving feedback. And I don't know if you've all seen that in your courses, especially, maybe they haven't gotten a lot of it, maybe they haven't practiced it a lot, but when they get feedback, some students are like, I get really defensive about it. And some students are, they're like, I don't quite know what to do. And so one of the things we talk about a lot is, you've got to learn to accept feedback in a way that, one, it's not about you, right? It's about the work. And this is something I used to teach AP art design. And so, when we do critiques, we'd say, well, when I say this painting needs more work, and you hear you're a terrible person, those aren't the same things that are happening. And I know all about but think about students, and I don't know if you've ever heard, sometimes you get feedback and you're like, oh, this person hates me, when really they're trying to make your work better, but it's hard to hear that sometimes. It's hard to hear that, criticism. So you're like, oh, I need to do that. And so the more they can do it, you start to develop this, what's called SRL, self-regulated learning, where you get this feedback, you go, oh yeah, it's not necessarily about me, it's about this work, it's about this thing that I've made, which is separate from you. But it's hard to do, right? It's hard to separate yourself from your work. And we've all done that because you spend all this time, you're writing and you're researching and you're building, and then someone tears it down and you're like, oh, that's me, that's my baby out there. But it's not really, it's just a thing. And so learning that separation really does help. And a lot of that comes through practice. The more you do it, the more you practice this giving feedback, receiving feedback, the better off it's going to be. And like I say, then the first time that they're at a job and they have a performance review and their boss is like, yeah, no, you have to do these things better. They're not going, well, they're going to fire me the next day. They're like, oh no, this is something I have to figure out how to do better, and you can move forward. Additionally, this really works well in courses where you're asking them to do something beyond memorization or multiple choice or things like that, where they're coming up with new and interesting solutions, where they're working independently, where they're doing higher level stuff. high level work, right? If you're just, if it's, I'm gonna pick an OT, like if it's like a anatomy course where you just have to memorize the parts of the body, and sometimes you do, right? This may not be as useful, right? Because you just have to grind it out and memorize the bones and the muscles and the tendons and all that stuff. And so maybe formative critique isn't quite as useful there. However, like you said, when you're moving to that research project, all of a sudden now we need that feedback as we're moving through those processes of developing the literature review and figuring out methodology and all of those things. That's where you need it, right? And so that's kind of where we go. The other idea about formative critique is as they get better at it, as they get more feedback and learn how to integrate that into what they're doing, hopefully they'll learn that not every time you get feedback means it needs to be integrated. Like sometimes you're going to get feedback and go, yeah, that's not really going to be useful. That's not something I need to put in there. And sometimes you're going to see, oh, that's great, I'm going to use it. And so learning the difference is also something we want to train students to do through doing. The big thing here is it doesn't happen all that often, even though we know it works, even though it happens to really engage students and get them thinking about what they're doing. It doesn't always happen because it takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of work. It's harder to do, and especially if you've got a class, you've got an online class with 200 students, it's harder to do formative critique in that setting. But if we think about the GSD courses, they're smaller. Sorry, Star, yours isn't, but the in-person ones are smaller. And so you do have a little more opportunity to work with those students on that one-on-one on giving them feedback. So the difference in, when we talk about formative assessment, we're talking about, oh, we're looking at work, we're giving you feedback, but formative critique tends to be more of a dialogue. It's not a one-time event. It's not one time for this assignment. It's over and over. You're checking in, we're seeing what happens. I also worth noting here, because I forget to say this sometimes, typically formative critique is not graded, right? Or if you want to grade it, you grade it as a completion grade. Oh, it's 10 points for this check-in. Just so we know that we're checking out. But ideally, formative critique, you don't want to be graded because everything's in process. And if the goal is to make the work better, the goal is to give them feedback to improve what they're doing. It's more about that process and getting their work out. Now, sometimes you need to put a grade in there to get people to do it. And I know we've all had that experience because, if you don't give it a grade, then no one's going to do that thing. But if it's an easy, I say easy, if the completion is all you need to do it, like that check-in, whatever it is, then that is one way to think about that and moving around it. Constructive feedback is specific, actionable, and timely. And that's the big thing. If you give that formative feedback, 2 weeks after they're working on it, it's probably not going to help much, right? It's got to be, ideally, it's got to be in the moment, right? When they're working in class, when you're standing right there and you're looking at the same piece of writing or the same data or the same experiment, whatever it is, and you can say, oh yeah, this, maybe you need to shift this is looking great, and move on. So timely is huge. Actionable, hey, that looks great, is not really actionable feedback. So you want to say, you really want to focus in on those specific things, like what is it you're doing? What is it that needs to be improved? What can you focus on? Because then they can take that and move on with it. And it is nice to say, oh yeah, you're doing great. And that's good, but it doesn't tell them what the strengths are in the work they're making. Once again, student reflection and engagement, because when you say it looks great, or when a peer, if you start facilitating, peer critique, peer formal critique, a peer says, oh yeah, I really like how you worded this. I really like, the way you structured, this outline. I really like the way you wrote up your lab report. I guess that's something, I don't know. Sorry, I'm in education. But these things, right? Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, you're good.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, you,
I was on
you were zooming in from my
spraying over.
Oh.
This crap.
And so yeah, this idea of like building that engagement through their reflection, because they're thinking about it. When someone tells them, hey, this looks really good, they're like, oh, well, why did, what did I do that made that good? Because I want to do that in other places. What did I do that maybe makes this not so understandable? How do I fix that when I see it come up again? And then it does build that trust. It builds that relationship with the student, because ideally, the more you check in, the more you're building that rapport, the more we're getting to that point.
And I will say real quick, and especially, I mean, this is a big benefit because both online and in person, we have just GSD instructors, Bill Lore. So we can ask kind of some of these questions that I've been pondering, which is that, like, this list that you see, an ongoing dialogue, like constructive feedback. Why do you think this would be important for our GSD students that you have in class right now? Like, what kind of benefits do you think we would see from having these kind of things in our GSD class? Bill, what do you think?
Connections, building community.
Yeah, because that's like half the battle with GSD, right? Like, if I can build a connection with them, I mean, studies show that they're gonna probably retain out there, right? Why else? Like, building connections. Do you see anything else up here that you're like, well, this would play well to GSD 101 because of X or Y?
Gives them confidence going through college in GSD.
Right.
They can see that they can grow and rise to the challenge that you're placing in front of them. In this course, it gives them confidence to do that in other courses they go through their work.
And challenges in GSD, I mean, we love our course and I love everything, but it's not the most challenging of things that they have to do, right? So it's kind of like an easy gold star that they get, that as they overcome these things, exactly, and then they have to do it again later, but it's in a harder context, they at least know something about it. Yeah. What were we gonna add to?
I was gonna say, like, even like the slides that we do every week, they're gonna have to do a presentation, they're gonna have to be doing PowerPoint things. And this is a really low stress, low stakes for them to be able to hone in on those skills that they're gonna need later as far as being able to deliver information.
Exactly. Think about the essential employability skill we're trying. I mean, this kind of goes with that. Think about some of the soft skills that we want them to have just generally, just to exist in the world as an adult, you know what I mean? So, yeah.
I think it also just prepares them for any type of classroom setting. So piggybacking off, the presentation piece, there's group activities that we do, there's individual work, there's, everything's virtual. Or not everything, but some assignments are virtual. So it's not the same routine, especially in GSD. Every week is obviously a different topic and different strategy in regards to delivering assignment. So it prepares them when they are getting classes that, all right, maybe it is more hands-on, or maybe it is more interactive, or maybe it is just lecture style, but they're prepared to adapt so that way they can accommodate themselves on however the information is being delivered.
100%. Couldn't agree more. Yeah, like I said, I want to take the opportunity, since I have most of GSD overall, people that I'm gonna connect it to our course a little bit.
Well, and I think that the idea of a presentation is such a great fit for this, right? Because it is more complex, it is more individualized, it is, it's not a check the box, it's not just memorization, you're building something. And so then, how do you implement that check-in with students? And the one thing I will say, formative critique does not have to be, instructor driven. Peer-to-peer a lot of times has a ton of value, because students listen to students more than they listen to us. I mean, because that's just how it works. And so if you can get away, where you have students working together, you think about a presentation, if they're on their laptops and they're building these slides, and you do a gallery walk, right? And everything's open, you can move around the room, go through people's slide decks and take a look, give feedback that way. That's such an easy way to do it. And they're getting feedback from students, and then, they're sharing out. And you think about a presentation, that's scary. You have to get up in front of someone, but if you've already had people look at it and they said, oh yeah, that's all right, that'll hopefully, lessen some of that fear and get them a little more comfortable, because they've already done a little mini, dipping their toe in the water, getting it out there in the world. So, it's the thing I would say about all of this is they don't have to be huge. They can start small, you can build small, and it does have bigger effects than it takes to plan in a classroom, if that makes sense. But yeah.
100%. No, yeah, great compliment.
Yeah, no, I realized that we're
okay.
beyond class.
So now what we're gonna do, so formative critique and assessment, right there, we've talked about this as kind of like a way to assess the students' skills as they go throughout the course, right? It is a way that we don't have to necessarily grade it, but we are really focused on the last thing that they make, that last artifact, right? The summative thing. And so one of the things that we wanted to do today, especially since we all have some hand in GSD, is to look at an assignment that we currently have in GSD that we're actually assigning this semester and saying, well, it's good, we like it, the idea behind it is good, but could we change it to be more formative assessment, formative critique, to see how we can maybe build upon it for future, right? Now, last year was our first year with Beyond the Classroom, and we got a lot of good feedback from it. I mean, again, studies show that students getting involved on campus, they're more likely to stick around. And so Beyond the Classroom, we got a lot of positive feedback from our GSD 101 instructors, you guys, about I love seeing my students going to the events and taking a selfie and then answering some questions. Like that was cool. And there's so many positives. And so for any of those not privy to this knowledge, Beyond the Classroom, it is a four different assignments for 4 different events that students have to go to an event on campus. And that event I make the rule in my class that it can't be repeats. I don't want 4 football games or whatever. But the student goes to an event. They then take a selfie of themselves at the event. They then do a small little write-up. You can kind of see on the screen what we have. And if you're in the course, you know what this is. And then they do that write-up and then they turn it in, right? And they do that 4 times. Now, traditionally, I would say about 90% of our instructors assign each event at a certain time and say it's for a certain month, especially in the fall, right? Event 1 can be in August, which is really easy to do for them because they've got a ton of events in August, right? September rolls around, event 2 happens, 3 for October, 4 for November. And so that's kind of been the flow that a lot of our instructors have gotten into. And so Beyond the Classroom, again, is trying to get them to go to these events and go to them. Now, these assignments are set, they're kind of on their own, right? When we think about it, they're not really interconnected at all, right? They could go to a tabling event for a study abroad. Then they could go to a football game. And then they could go to a floor meeting at their dorm where they're doing an event. And then in November, they can go to some kind of study thing for finals or stress relief. And so there's a through line, but the through line is very slim. It's like college, it's like college event is the through line. And so they're very on their own. You may even notice that as you have taught GSD, that a lot like we talked about a moment ago, when we give the student the grade, the 20 points or whatever we give them for that assignment, they're like, cool, on to the next one. There's not a lot of maybe reflection that happens unless you choose to do that within your room, which would be great. And so what the goals are for Beyond the Classroom when we first made it to kind of broadly talk about it is to, keep them engaged with campus, right? Obviously, we want them to be engaged with what's going on. Like we said, they will reflect on how each event can impact their college experience, right? That's another thing that we ask them in those series of questions is, how is this going to help you in college? Why is this impacting this, right? If I go to a study abroad table or an event, well, then that's impacting maybe some future semesters that I'm going to have, right? And then these events can vary on depending on what's going on in the class, right? We always tell every instructor and in our trainings and in our emails and everything that really the events are kind of up to you. You get to dictate what's an event and what's not an event. And especially if you're with a college, please use your college events as well. Do what you want to do with these events. Now, what happens is that, and what we've noticed is that, like I said, these are very isolated and they may not have a through line. And on top of that, I don't know if you've experienced what I've experienced in my GSD classroom, but that event 1 is maybe not at the same level that I would like event 4 to be at, right? On event 1, they may send me a picture that's not even a picture of themselves, but of them giving a thumbs up, and then their write-up is not the best. And like Pete and I were saying, or mostly Pete was saying earlier, was that when I give them the grade and I provide the feedback in Canvas or last year with Blackboard, they could choose not to read that and then just continue on their journey and be like, you know what, 12 out of 20 points is good enough. I'm going to do the same thing over and over and over because 12 out of 20 is good enough for me. And so where it currently falls short is that I listed off some bullets, but I would love to also hear that as I go through these, if you're seeing anything on where this assignment falls short right now, please, you have the floor. And like, as we said, online people, you have the floor as well as chat, which is that what I've noticed is that students may stack all events in 1 month, depending on class preference, right? Well, if I'm an instructor and I tell them verbally, like, hey, I'm only going to give you access to 1 each, they can still attend 4 events in August. And then just when the next one's available, just put the one from August there. And then the one in October, well, guess what? I got another one from August that I want to talk about. November, guess what? You guessed it right. August. You know what I mean? Second, questions do not require substantive responses. We try to word questions on these assignments in a way that provides space and opportunity for reflection and for students to really explore. But as with some GSD sections, that may not always be the case, right? We have some sections of GSD or just first year students in general who may want to just get the assignment over with and submit it. And then by default, students do not share their event or experience with anyone other than the instructor. And I say by default because you may do something different in your own classroom, right? You may have them put it somewhere else. But like how GSD is set up and how Canvas is set up and Blackboard was last year, they just submit it to you. And that's it. And that's where it stops. And so what I want first to ask you is like, this is where I think it kind of falls short in terms of it all. Where have you seen some of it? Have you seen some of it fall short that's a little bit different than this or back me up or validate me on some of these things? Or what are we feeling when we think about this assignment? Even though I really like it, a lot of people really like it, we got to still be honest and say, well, what can we improve on? You know what I mean? Bill?
I have thoughts.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, number one, don't allow that.
Right,
Because I look at it like we want like this sustained effort,
right.
right? We want them doing things throughout, not stacking. So I don't allow that, and I tell them, like, I check the date. You better, number 2, better have an after number 1 was due.
Absolutely.
So I think that's important. Number 2, I'm not sure, like, we want them to go, and I want it to be fun. I don't want them to think of it like work. Other than
Exactly.
that cool selfie where you see them with their friends typically,
Yeah.
it's the ones I've seen. It's like, I'm actually okay that it's not like big responses and a heavy load.
But we want it to be like applicable to, be
Yeah.
like real.
I mean,
And
if it's just engagement, then like the going, and then I typically have them like what'd you do? And they do a little bit of sharing. But I think reading number 3, that here on number 2, which is what they're on now, I may actually have them share out more so they can learn from each other things they may not have known. So I'm gonna do number 3 more.
yeah, and that's kind of what we want to kind of design.
Well, no, I was gonna say, it's funny because these, especially 2 and 3 really do, if we talk about formative critique, one, the substantial responses, even if it's just a reflection, if you have to show that to someone before you turn it in, like another human being, like your work's probably gonna be a little better than if you didn't. Because there is a little bit of cost of showing like lazy work to another person.
Yeah.
Yeah, we all know it, right? Because if you know someone else is gonna see it in the moment and like talk about it to you, you're probably gonna put a little more, even if it's just a reflection, like this is what I did, this is what I felt, this is what I thought about. And the same thing with the, not sharing with anyone other than the instructor. Again, if you're doing that gallery walk, if you're sharing with someone else, if you're getting feedback, then you know that someone else is seeing it before you turn it in. And so it does help broaden that out. So you're getting that engagement from either other students or the instructor. It's hopefully making your work a little bit better just through peer pressure and fear. I know that fear is not a great way to teach. I understand that, but sometimes it's got its place, And so I think this is really nice because the things we're talking about today really do hit those last 2 pretty easily.
Yeah.
For what you do in class.
And I know some other people maybe wanted to say something too, to kind of what we were talking about, Ryan.
I mean, I absolutely agree with the first two bullet points. I've been teaching for a few years. I never even thought of, disabling event 1, 2, 3. I'm doing it now, but like, I think I was just in the mind frame that you need to go to 4. I do emphasize that, it can be a football game, a yoga class, a residence hall event, and something academic. The second one, though, I do agree with your point about they should be going for the, what's the word? The experiences, yes.
Right.
But, I just got done, I'm a week behind just because of how some stuff is scheduled with my class, like team building. So he just did, what?
That is all.
Okay, that's all right. So they just did the wellness chapter last week, and obviously that's something we push in rec. But I do think there's maybe a world where you align the dimensions of wellness with the event they took. So that's looking at a little bit more feedback, if I went to study abroad an event, what dimension or dimensions of wellness is that aligning with? And maybe there's a question of how does that align, or what did that make you think of?
Right.
Same thing from, anything rec related, they could put physical or social, but that may add a little bit more of substance. If you're looking more than just, did you like it? Would you go again? X, Y, Z.
Exactly. And like, and into all of this too, I mean, one of the other things to think about is for GST 101 specifically, at the end, we have them do a presentation, right? Whether you're an exploratory or you're in a college specific, because college specific does have like the pathway to success kind of deal that you could utilize. But we do have something at the end that has them show what they've learned throughout the semester. And so then my mind has kind of been wondering, as you've been talking, of like, well, then how could I even have it play into the very end? I don't know about you, but like we said, we've taught it for a couple of years, right, for GSD. And last year when I went through my Beyond the Classroom for some of my students, I remember like how they would tell me throughout the semester that they would have ups and downs, that they'd have hardships and then they'd overcome it, right? And then to see some of them back to back to back, like they're beyond the classroom of the event, and they went to this event, and they met new friends and went to this event, and it's like a little story of their semester. It like got my heartstrings a little bit. I was like, oh my gosh, like you're right. I saw where you went to an event, and you look scared, and then all of a sudden I see one friend, and then I see another friend that tacked on, and then I see this other event. So it is like a story, and yeah, the substantive response is really like what we want them to reflect, like we talked about earlier, like formative critique allows them to do. We want them to reflect critically and everything like that. And then that last question is just something to keep in mind, because we're actually going to do that here in just a moment. And so, I'm seeing what my next one is real quick. Cool. So what we want to do today in here, as I'm going to make us 2 groups in person. And for my online people, you can either do this on your own. I'm open with you all doing this like as a big group and like sharing out within the online space. We can hear you a little bit through here, but it's not very loud. So you are, free to discuss it. It will not interrupt us too bad. But for our people in the session, what we want to do, and the kind of like charge we want to do, is we want to say, okay, Beyond the Classroom is a good assignment. How do we change it to maybe reflect on this formative assessment approach that we've been talking about a little bit? How do we maybe change some of the expectations? How does the assignment change? And how do things need to morph to meet the needs of our students, right? To meet the needs of, I want to see progress. I want to see you getting more friends throughout, or going to different things, or doing all this different stuff. And so here's what we're going to do. We're going to group up. I'm going to have, your group of 3. And then if I can have your group of 4, that would be great. And I've got big Post-its, or we can use the whiteboards, either one. We're going to give you time to take our version of Beyond the Classroom that exists right now and say, if we keep formative assessment in mind, that idea, how would this assignment change? How would you change it? Knowing that, like I said, we have that kind of capstone assignment at the end of the semester, knowing the clientele of a first-year student, knowing that formative assessment is more like checkpoints and we give them feedback throughout. What does a Beyond the Classroom look like that's different with formative assessment? Did you?
Yeah, no, that sounds that I was sounded great. I'm excited.
Yeah, exactly. We're going to give you about 25 minutes. And in that 25 minutes, we're just going to let you create. We're going to walk around. Pete and I will walk around the room. Pete will answer more of like the formative assessment questions, and people online like I said, feel free to unmute. We'll come over here and we'll answer what you're asking. So like we will, obviously, we have these little speakers that we're walking around with anyway. So we'll kind of keep you involved in that way as well. But you got 25 minutes. You're going to redesign beyond the classroom with formative assessment in mind. And before you get too much into the weeds, real quick, before you get too much into the weeds, we have some points to ponder, some things to keep in mind as you're doing this with your group, right? These are questions that are more rhetorical that we just like Pete and I were thinking about one day, and we're like, well, maybe you can think about this while you're working, which is first off, how do you get connected as a new faculty member? How does a connected student look like? Because those first two, it's like, how do you connect and then how do they connect, and can that play a role into it all? How does this assignment benefit students, which we've talked about, I feel like ad nauseum to this point, but obviously you can come up with novel ideas. What are the challenges students face in getting connected on campus? So are there accessibility things going on? Are there other things that are happening? And then is this new assignment student focused? Because again, the idea beyond the classroom in GST 101 is to get them connected. Okay. Pete, you want to add
No,
anything?
it looks great. No.
Yeah.
Be quiet a little more.
All right. We have Post-its, we have giant Post-its, we have markers, we have whiteboard markers. We've got everything. We got 25 minutes, so we're about 20. So let's get to it.
Right. I work.
Just so that you all.
So we can hear each other.
Can hear you.
Yes.
Yes.
Yep, I can hear.
Okay.
Yep. All right. Anybody have any thoughts?
Well, one thing I was thinking about is I have a couple of just absolutely stellar students in my class, which is so exciting. And one of them did the Beyond the Classroom really early on, one of the options. And I was reading over everything, and I mean, and it, again, stellar student, had a great synopsis of everything and stuff like that. So the next class period before it started, I actually asked him, I said, can I pick on you to talk about your Beyond the Classroom? How you found it, how it made you feel, did you feel connected, etc. And he's like, yeah, sure, no problem. And he did bingo. He in the ravine one night, and he took a picture of him and a couple other guys. He said it helped him blow off steam, how it was a stress reliever and helped him feel more connected to campus. And I really feel by having him kind of like tell the rest of the class that helped a lot of the others kind of, you know, connect to what this was trying to do, what this assignment really was trying to do. And you know, just see that they're all doing this. There is that connection and that community and stuff like that. So one thing I was kind of thinking of as we were going through this is, you know, if we're, instead of doing it all at once, is you have to do one by this time, one by this time, one by that time, maybe not necessarily with all four, but maybe at least with the first one, go around the room and make that part of the assignment that you have to tell what you did, how it made you feel, how it made you connect, or something like that. So putting that extra peer you know, views on things, on how it helped each individual. So that was a thought that I had.
I was thinking something kind of similar, Beth, but just a little bit different. I was thinking maybe have them kind of pre-plan at least the first one, maybe not all four, but at least the first one, like sit down, let's think about what are you going to do? Why did you pick this one? How do you think it's going to help you? All that, and then talk about it as a group. You know, have them all talk about what they're planning to do in little individual groups. That way they can get ideas off of each other, all of that kind of thing, and just kind of help think it through a little bit.
Beyond the classroom.
Both are very similar.
Yeah, no, I like that. And, you know, maybe even, you know, tying it all together, just like having that deadline where, hey, this class period, we're going to spend 20 minutes. You know, you just need to get up, show us your picture and tell us just a little bit about it. And we're going to do it by this time, like maybe 4 weeks in, right? By the 4th week in, you should have at least one Beyond the Classroom done. You know, we've talked about it, we've planned it, you can figure out what you're going to do, and then we're going to get up and share it. So that way, they kind of know that it's happening and they can see what other people have done, which, because I thought that it really killed. I love this assignment because I love looking at all their reports and everything, but nobody else gets to see it but me. So, you know, and I write things back to them like, oh, that's so glad you got to do it. They never write back. They never say anything back to me. It's fun. I think it's a lot of fun.
I got something too. I thought that maybe we could, what I might do in my class for one of the Beyond the Classrooms is put them in groups, because I put them in groups almost every week. Put them in groups and have them do a Beyond the Classroom together, and then come in and talk about it together.
So, I like that too, requiring at least one of them to be done like as a group.
I love that.
Try it. See what happens.
Because some of them may, you know, hate group work, but there may be a few of them also who don't have connections on campus, and they don't want to go by themselves, and that's probably a big part of the struggle to go, because they don't have anyone to go with. So if you're forcing them to go together at least once, maybe it would help them bridge that
together as a group. They can talk about it in class.
Class engagement, identity, connection, community. I would say
another thought I had is I've been really trying to promote those student success workshops that they have, and I've really been like, hey, this is a great beyond the classroom. If we collaborate with the Student Success Center to maybe do one of those workshops at that class time. So it's, hey, we're all going together. We are going to do this. This is going to also be your beyond the classroom, even though it's classroom time. You know, to get them all to go to one of those and then afterwards reflect on how is this beneficial to you.
They all complain about the same things, right? They don't know how to manage their time. They don't know how to study. They don't know how to do this. And those success workshops have all of those things covered. And you can sit up there and be like, here, it's coming up. Go do it. And they won't go do it.
Yes.
I think that's a great idea also, Beth. I also was kind of thinking like, and maybe they already do this, I don't think so, but in the reflection, if we could have them try to tie in the employability skills, like pick one or two of the employability skills and tell us how this may help you with that. Tie in the bigger theme of the class. That ties in directly to formative critique.
I like that.
I had a thought about doing one of them as like a discussion board, which because that would hopefully encourage them to comment on each other, but maybe if they're not as comfortable doing it in front of the whole class, you could do a discussion board and they could post with their pictures and then have other students comment on each other's and just require like so many comments. And wouldn't have to do that with everyone, but you know, could do it like with the third one. That way by that time, hopefully they know how discussion boards work in Canvas. So I think one of the issues that I run into is like I have commuters, I have students that work. And so it's really hard for some of them to find the time to do the stuff on campus. So last fall I was really flexible and I was like, you know, anything that you do outside of your going to class, if there's a way you can relate it to helping you be a good student and, you know, draw that relationship, I let them use it because some of them just really struggled with going to some of the events on campus, except for, you know, the biggie welcome week, you know, there's lots of those. So yeah.
I agree. I've got a few commuters in my class and that's been their comment. Like, I'm just here on Tuesdays and Thursdays. I don't, come to campus, and they have full-time jobs. I even have somebody who's the caretaker of another person. So, being flexible with them with this type of an assignment, it's really important. They've got really good ideas about other things too. So
for my online people, you know, hear me, by the way.
yep.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, I was walking around over there and I just want to check in with you. So like, what is this kind of brought about thought with this, like, in terms of like formative assessment and stuff like that? Like, what have we kind of like as a group kind of said and have been saying and stuff?
I made the suggestion of making everybody or having everybody do a beyond the classroom, like break them up into groups and have them do a beyond the classroom together, and then be able to present it in class, kind of, to everyone.
Yeah. And so maybe some of that like feedback and critique comes from within that group, right? To say like, we're going to do this together. And then as they present, maybe that first one, they can go around the room and say like, oh, I didn't even realize them. Right? Stuff like that. Kind of what we're getting at a little bit.
I think so.
Okay. Cool. What else? What else have you all been thinking?
Somebody brought up discussion boards.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, I had thought that maybe like for the third one, after they've gotten comfortable with using Canvas, that maybe one of them they could present as a discussion board, and that way all the other students could comment on each other's, and just you could require, 2, 3, 4 classmate responses, and that would be a way to make them share, but not necessarily make them stand up in front of the class if they're not comfortable doing that.
Yeah.
They can share their pictures also.
Yes, definitely. They could post those.
And that, I mean, in terms of that can also be kind of a way where students can include like links to where they have found things, right? Like if it's through the Engage website, they can kind of say, hey, I utilize this website, by the way, just in case you want to utilize it for the future. Absolutely. I like that. 100%. Well, cool. I just wanted to check in real quick, just to make sure you all felt seen and heard, and that we get your opinions and ideas, because they're also very good. So you got any other questions real quick before I check on another?
I think so.
Okay. All right.
I wonder, you mentioned the student success workshops. I wonder if they have some of those where they're virtual, because that would also help our commuters and people who work and stuff, because then they could do a Zoom, or they, I don't know, something where it doesn't require them to be on campus at a specific time. I was trying to look it up.
I know that they have a few, like they'll do a few throughout the term that are offered online, but I feel like they're more specifically targeting online students in those instead of the broad population. But there may be something I'm not aware of too. That could definitely be true. For sure.
For I think I might have missed the question a little bit, but for my that aren't always on campus, what I typically, can you all hear me? I'm sorry.
A little bit. It's going in and out.
Hold on, let me try this. Can you hear me better now?
Yes.
What I did was I opened it up to just like the broader Richmond community. I let them focus on things that aren't just focused centrally on campus, like whatever's in Richmond. Like go down to the Richmond Center. For one of the moms that's in my class, I said, bring your kids on a weekend and do like a weekend mini tour and take a picture of that. Just somewhere around Richmond, in the community, I think is fine. EKU's bigger than just campus, so I thought it was important to be accessible in that way.
It's a great idea.
I did that last year. I said it was Richmond or Madison County as part of our greater community.
Yeah.
And because you're only sharing with
faculty members, like even if they are.
I
But the
was like,
person, sorry,
oh, go ahead.
which I might actually be speaking to you. I was wanting to know more about how to set up a discussion board on Canvas because I really like that idea.
I don't necessarily know how to create one. I haven't
Yeah,
done that yet in Canvas, but that's something I would need to play around with myself because I'm brand new to Canvas this semester. So,
yeah.
Amanda, do you know how to create one?
I think I could figure it out, but just to be able to tell you right, I'll say this. Every time I need to know how to do something in Canvas, I just Google, how do I do this in Canvas? And it
Yeah.
will pull up step-by-step instructions. So
That's what I do.
Google is my friend for sure. I don't think it's too complicated, but
Yeah.
it will depend too. Like if you're breaking it, it gets a little more complicated. If you're breaking the discussion board into groups, one discussion board for the whole class, that's a little simpler, I think, to set up. You can also do it where you split everybody into smaller groups, and each discussion board maybe has 5 or 6 students or something like that, which would probably be what would be best for this assignment, is splitting smaller
Yeah,
groups.
I was trying to get fancy and actually tag the discussion board in the Beyond the Classroom assignment so it's easier for them to navigate as well, but I might have to keep it basic.
We'll learn. We'll all learn.
What I learned. Yeah. I'm gonna group like reflection.
We're gonna group back up at 305. 305, we're gonna group back up.
I did have my students this time, when the first day we talked about this assignment, get into small groups and just discuss some ideas, like talk about things you might want to do. But I didn't make them present or reflective. I just gave them a few minutes to kind of talk to each other about it.
This year I have a bunch in Music 171, and apparently they have to go to so many music events as part of their class. So I was like, hey, double dip. We're always looking ways to, make something stretch farther. So if you go to a music event, use it as your Beyond the Classroom too. Get credit for both classes. And I always try to pull up Engage at least once or twice a week, or no, every once or twice every 2 weeks. And, just be like, hey, here's what's going on.
Yes, I do that too. I try to pull it up at the beginning of class while students are filtering in, and just so they have something to look at.
Yeah.
I have a lot of PGM students, and there's a lot of events that they do that I'm like, hey, this is a freebie for you for Beyond the Classroom. This will work. So
I think you and I have all the PGMs.
Yeah, I think we do. And they're a great group, I gotta say.
I love them. I love them.
I do too. I love they're fantastic. But yeah, so I'm like, hey, do that. When City Fest was on campus, I encouraged them to go do City Fest. And
so the Student Success Center will come to your class. All you have to do is reach out to Dr. Sweat, and she can have somebody come for any of those activities. I guess it's the Shelgren series. She can have any of them come and do the thing in your class, because I am having her come next week and do the study session one in my class. So
that's awesome.
Any of those, they will come to your class and do them. So that is also Beyond the Classroom. So
who did you say the contact was for that?
It's Dr. Sweat. So it's the Student Success Center. You can go on their website and they have an email. It's probably studentsuccess@eku.edu. But you can just email them and say that you'd like them to come to your class and do it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes, thank you.
That is
fantastic. Did you all see Hayden put in the chat?
I know I said 305, but I want to make sure we have just enough time. And I heard a lot of really great things. We are going to share out. Actually, we were planning. I want to show you something. We with how the groups are kind of spaced out, we originally had planned to share out through a Kagan strategy called Think, Pair, Share. with time and how conversation has gone, we don't think this is the best way to share out right now. But we do want to highlight that this is something we wanted to practice with you all in the room, because then you could just then take it in case you didn't know to your classroom if you wanted it. But Think, Pair, Share is like, hey, I've got a bunch of groups around, and every person in a group has to go find one other person in another group, and you got to pair up and you got to share what you all made. Now, again, with how we're kind of spaced out today, that may not work, but I do want to have the opportunity to share out what we've kind of been working on here today, especially because we've been hearing a lot of really great things. So the whole idea, let me get to a good slide here. There we go. The whole idea today was we're going to try and rework this assignment. Beyond the Classroom has a lot of positives, and we want to see it grow, and we want to see how formative assessment can affect that. Now, we're going to start with a group in here, then we're going to move to online people, and then we'll go with the other group, but I'm going to hand this speaker for the in-person people. And so I've got this group of 3 right here. The Cotterell duo plus Christina. All right. And so walk us through what you kind of were thinking about when we're thinking about maybe reworking this and what we've got going on.
Yeah, we wanted to try to build more of that review that we were talking about before. So we've moved towards potentially sharing these in small groups as each one of these assignments is due. We wanted to have a long-term goal as well for the whole, to bring it all together. And we thought we could, as you mentioned, probably bring that into the final one, is kind of work on how did you grow as a student throughout the entire semester? How did you build connections? So bring that into the skills that you also developed. One of the skills is the connection. So we wanted to add that into the final there. As was mentioned, if we put too much of this reflection focus into the assignment from the beginning, it may, bring a lot of anxiety and extra work to actually go into the event. So we broke up the change of grade right here into just go to the event is some portion of it. And then when we do that sharing, that's another portion of it. Those are easy. Those are easy points to get. That's 50% of the grade. Just go and then make sure you're in class when we do the sharing. Mm-hmm. Easy points there. And then the reflection lets them come back to it later and then talk about it later. And then with that reflection, you can give a little bit better feedback on like that part of it as you're going through. So
absolutely. And one of the things we talked about whenever I came over there was that, like, for some classes, right, if I'm thinking of like art and design as a class, that some students, especially in their major, are pretty motivated to keep doing the thing while they're getting feedback, right? If I'm an art and design major, I want to create. So this kind of, I don't need to put point values to my check-ins because I already have motivation to keep going. GSD 101 students, on the other hand, may not have that much motivation to keep on moving. And so, yeah, I think here we've talked about, like, do we give points for formative assessment and do we not? I think GSD 101 is more in the camp of we probably need to, because their motivation is a little lacking for some of our GSD students, to say in the best possible ways. Anything else you want to add?
Well, I was going to say, with the changing the grading, you've made like 3 really natural checkpoints, right? Where you can check in, where you can have a quick moment in class where you're like, oh, who's gone to something? And you can go, oh, what have you gone to? What have you seen? And you've got this kind of like little mini share out, right? And then, sharing with the group as you go. And then, of course, that kind of reflection at the end, what did you see? What did you like? How'd it go? And so you've kind of set up a situation where you have this, 3 sections where you can check in. And again, it does help students. Like, if they didn't do anything, then they think, well, everyone else did the stuff, I need to get on it. And you can start thinking about where do I sit as far as the assignment. And then with the share out, someone says, well, I saw this, and someone says, well, I saw something totally different. And you start like getting those, comparative reactions to whatever event or thing they did, which could be really great.
Yeah. I really like the gallery walk, to be honest, because that I use sometimes, and I stole it from Pete a while ago whenever Pete was teaching art that model. And I thought it was fun. And I think that can kind of play into what we're doing here as well. We're going to go to our online people next and kind of give you the space and the floor before we go to our other in-person group. So, I already kind of asked you earlier, but now you have the entire floor. Everybody's listening. So what have we kind of like come to what's some of the things we talked about? If somebody or multiple people want to share or anything, the floor is yours. What did we come to?
I mentioned,
There you go.
oh, I kind of mentioned, putting them on groups of 4 or whatever, and having them go out together, doing it beyond the classroom, and then coming back and discussing it in class, sharing pictures and stuff. Maybe, I don't know, doing, oh, I don't know what I'm trying to say, PowerPoint of some sort, maybe like as a group together or something like that, and present it in class. And then, if they have questions or whatever.
Yeah, alleviate some fear of being by yourself a little bit for maybe the first couple times, having like, all right, we're gonna do something as a group 100%. What else? What else? Thank you so much, by the way. What else is going on? What else have we been thinking about?
I think like everybody kind of had a similar version of presenting to others. Like, so therefore there is that, as you mentioned, kind of that peer assessment of how things are going, how it helps you and stuff like that. So there was a discussion about doing a discussion board post. So it's not just a reflection to the instructor, but a discussion within the classroom. There was also a, hey, you have to have something done by this point, and then everybody's going to do just a real quick synopsis of what you did with your beyond the classroom. And maybe not for every single one, but maybe for like the first one, just to get everybody more acclimated and seeing kind of where they are and what others are doing. Or even like the discussion board was mentioned, to do it by like the third one, so that everybody has had a chance to kind of learn more about the class, the campus community, and stuff like that.
For sure, yeah. And one of the things we mentioned in the discussion board too is if they had any good links and stuff, that would be accessible through that a little bit more than maybe a presentation or something else. 100%. Anything else y'all want to chime in with? Okay, all right. We're gonna go then onto our other group in person here. Your all's whiteboard is full, so I'm ready. I'm ready to be led through the pathway of arrows and everything we got going on over here. I'm pumped about it. So yeah, what do we?
We would love you to.
Yeah, what we got going on over there? Oh, you got the mic. Okay.
Okay, yeah, we've got the mic.
Okay.
Okay, so first we were looking at what we want students to gain from these activities. We want, at the end of a GSD class, we want them to be successful, we want them to be engaged, we want them to have developed their identity, have gained connections and community, and overall growth. And from that should also come an emotional result of security and confidence, right? Yeah. Then the EKU goal is retention. That's not their goal necessarily, but that is our goal, is that if they have all of these things and get all of these things on campus, then they will retain them. So with that, we looked at restructuring the beyond the classroom activities into a progressive process that they could then reflect on at the very end of the semester. And so at the beginning, they're exploring, they're learning new things. It's a great time. It's already built into the GSD, but they could go a step further with, okay, you have to have met with the Knoll studio. You have to have had an appointment with a student success tutor, something like an activity like that, that is an act that engages them with a resource on campus. However, we also argued that making those connections is also really important. And so giving them the option to have either of these activities go first. So building that community. So they have to have done something that is related to registered RSOs or intramural activity, one of the religious organizations, whatever community they're Rush, whatever that may be, so that they are making those connections with other students. So then the third activity would be an application of skills. So in theory, we've got the major expo and the job fair going on in October, 2/3 of the way through or 3/4 of the way through the semester. And so that is a great opportunity for them to utilize the skills they've gained so far throughout the semester and look at that. And then the final one would either be growth or focus. So they would look at either going beyond their comfort zone and trying something entirely new that they would have never tried here, or they would talk about their found community and the place that they keep returning to here on campus if they've got something that they are doing, that identity that they've gained. And then the final project or presentation in effect would be their semester story growth, so that they have, and then they have that progress to the end.
Absolutely. And you know what this reminds me of?
Story and pictures.
Yeah. Still doing pictures.
What you were saying.
Yeah. What this reminds me of, and this may be too out of order, so stick with me because I had to write it down because I don't want to forget it. What this reminds me of is like taking the idea of what beyond the classroom is and really jumbling up the steps. Saying it's almost like if I had imagined this as like a math classroom or like any other type of classroom that builds upon one another, right? Maybe the first assignment of Beyond the Classroom is a worksheet where I have them list off 10 events from Engage that look good. And then tell me why it looks good. And that's the first one of Beyond the Classroom, right? That identify exploration, right? They are identifying, they don't have to go yet. They don't have to do anything, but we're practicing with the website, right? Second, connections. Then maybe in my second assignment, we look at 3 specific ones and we say, what kind of connections can we make from if I were to have attended this, right? And throughout this process, they can still attend events. They can, you would say, hey, you're going to have to attend events at some point. You still want to, but we're building this idea of, well, I'm going to show you what the best way is to try and find an event. Then a 3 would be the application, right? I'm attending, like I'm going to do it now. I've looked at 10 events. We've talked about those 3 of those events in class together about what the benefits, gonna attend. And then that growth and reflection is that capstone piece, right? So it's like, and what I mean by I wanted to connect it to a math classroom, it's like, well, if I was learning math, I need to kind of practice a lot of addition and then I practice a lot of subtraction and multiplication division. And by the time I'm done, I can, if you remember back in elementary school, those big papers with 100 questions on them, and you tried to get them done real fast of all the different like addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, and you're like, I'm done. I'm the first one done. That's kind of the capstone of that for an elementary classroom, but this is a little bit different, right? And so that's what I like about your all is that it reminded me of, oh, what if the event one was as simple as you just have to list off 10 events from Engage and provide a link to show that you can at least look up an event or a picture of a flyer to show that you know where it is. So yeah, I like that a lot, 100%. What were you saying?
Well, I also thought the retention thing is really interesting because, it is obviously a huge issue for EKU to keep students retained, but also like, I would guess that most of our students want to stay at EKU. Like they don't, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But very few, there's probably a couple, right? But very few of them, very few of them don't want to succeed. Most of them want to succeed here and stay at EKU.
Yeah.
And I wonder, there's such a metacognition piece there where they think, well, what successes and engagements and identity, what things are going to make me more comfortable here, more successful here, want to stay here more. And I think those really do play into that retention piece. Even you kind of separate it, but I think it does play into it because, what do they think is going to keep them here? What do they need, to stay at EKU? And I really like that because they do have to start thinking about that because it really is on them to stay. The university can do everything, but if they're not doing their side of it, then it all goes away. And same thing. The other thing is I don't remember who it was. I heard someone say, what would I do again when they were talking about the events that they're going to? And I think that could be a really powerful moment in there. Like if you go to something like that's not for me, but like when you find that place where you feel comfortable, where you feel accepted, where you find people around you how do you reflect on that? How do you find a way back? How do you find a way to work that into, your life at EKU? And I thought that was a really nice point. But yeah.
Absolutely. Now, we only have like a little bit longer. Something, Bill?
Well, I was just thinking, I mean, because the idea, right, is to think about this formative. That ideally you stay away from assigning grades to things that are formative in nature. So I tend to collect, I review, full credit. You completed it, good job, right? And we share things. But then like with your example, working through like using this and how you framed it, that it all just builds up and we help them throughout to then the summative, which is the culminating project, which is for a grade. And so I think that's important that we don't get overly caught up on grading them for like, because we're just really, I mean, again, maybe it's just me, but I look at it and I say, the goal is to get them involved. They should go and have fun and they should meet people. And if they've done that, it's full credit. Why are we why are we being harsh on grading a reflection or they left out the date and time? I don't care. Shit, you did the thing. I'm happy. I'm so happy for you.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yes. You went outside, which is like a big thing for a lot of people. Yeah, absolutely.
I think like your point, because I think early on, a lot of the students, they don't know how to find the events. Or where these are.
Yeah.
And I mentioned engage, but I do think there is a benefit, and maybe not a whole lesson on engage to work at. But what is engage? How do I access? How do I see? How do I there's contact information on there, there's registration links.
There's like location and a map. Like, I mean, it's just it's incredible. And that's one of this year I have a first year leader. Their name is Toby and they're great. Toby Paris. If you know Toby, I'm a big fan. And so Toby walked them through recently the Engage app. But then they also walk them through, all my students through the like careers at EKU website for students. And it's one of those things where we told them about Engage and we told them where events are, but really they didn't have to follow Toby. They didn't have to follow Toby and click through the event. They could just sit there, right? I mean, GSD wants to, one of the students, they like to sit there. They could just sit there. And there could be something to the effect of at the beginning of the semester, we say, hey, your goal is to attend 4 events. And at the end, your summative assignment, your artifact that you're going to have as part of your final presentation, you have to show us what 4 events you went to. But how we're changing beyond the classroom is, well, one of the first lessons or one of the first assignments in our GSD classes, another thing where they fill out 10 links, right? Maybe in week 4, then we all get together and we say, hey, we're doing a checkpoint together of an event you went to, and you got to show me what you did. And we're going to talk together about it. Week 8 or week 6, we say, okay, you've probably gone to 2 events now. You should have, right? Let's talk about some of the things we've run into. Let's talk about some of the stressors, because in week 6 and in week 7, we talk about like financial aid and all these other things. So let's talk about some stressors. Week 12, they're talking about professionalism, and week 13, they're talking about civil, like how to get engaged globally and civic as well. And so it's just trying to make it connected while this thing of 4 events is kind of, I hate to say looming, but you're like, you have to have 4 events to show in your final presentation.
But I even think just making that list opens up the conversation and dialogue of, oh, you listed that event and I have it on my list. Okay, well, maybe we should go together. So then you're
exactly
knocking out all kinds of things with just making that list. And the next thing you know, there's 5 of them going to the same event. And then they've got, all of our goals.
Exactly, 100%. And this is exactly what we wanted. This is like picture perfect, 100%. Now, we only have a couple more minutes because I want to make sure that we at least talk about how this could be useful outside of here, because I know some of us, OT education, like we teach other classes outside of GSD 101, like, or people online, you may not be teaching GSD 101 and you're only teaching college specific classes. And so really what we want to do for a second is to kind of see like, how can I use some of the ideas here to help me maybe redesign an assignment in my own curriculum, right? How can I use formative assessment to do that? Is that kind of what we're thinking with this one?
And I don't love redesign, because it can be just tweaks. That's the thing, like, it can just be small, but the idea of like, oh, I've got to redesign it, but like, adding those checkpoints in, adding those moments in where you can, give guidance before the summative paper or project presentation, whatever it happens to be, is, what I would think about it. Yeah, we've all got too much on our plate to like redesign it.
Yeah.
But if you think about those moments that you could easily work in, or, clearly work in, that would maybe be the goal here, more than giving you homework.
Yeah, does that does it kind of bring thoughts of like, where could I add checkpoints to some of the other classes? And if it does it like what other classes, just opening the floor, what are your thoughts and feelings? I know it's a lot. Especially after an hour and 25.
I say it's 3:30 on a Tuesday.
You've inspired me to do a little bit better job at my grading, because a lot of times I go, sounds great, because, I'm grading, 30 papers at a time.
Sure,
and
yeah.
4 classes, and it's like, and it is important for them to get substantive feedback and formative, and
I will say the one thing I really use in Canvas is like when there's a paper on it, you can like highlight and put a little comment next to it.
Yeah.
And that way you don't have to like write this like narrative in the little box, and you can just like, I usually like, we'll go through pick out things that really work. You go, oh yeah, this makes a lot of sense in comparison. And then yeah, because it's hard. That is the like hardest thing about this, is it does take more time, but you can find ways to like hack it and make it go a little bit faster.
It is important to the students. They want to know how it is.
All right, well, like I said, we only have a couple more minutes, and we want to first off thank you all for like attending and being here, and to be open to like helping us brainstorm and get out of your comfort zone and be in groups and see how we can approach something that is already, like we said, I feel like it's a good assignment, but how do we make it really, really impactful in the way that it needs to be for students? Pete and I are going to stick around for like some extra questions and stuff like that, and just like general discussion if you all need to and stuff. People online, I am going to grab your attendance real quick. Or actually, we have this recorded, so I can grab it later. So people online, feel free to stick around, ask questions, discuss anything, or ask us questions as you need to. But you all are free to be dismissed. So yeah, thank you all for attending. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Alex, can I ask you a Canvas question?
Yeah.
So.
No.
Because, and I think I sent you emails maybe when I first started here like 3 years ago.
Maybe.
Because I did study abroad when I was in college. I went abroad. I went to school in Australia for a couple of years.
Oh my God.